Hello, and welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Whether you're going for that next promotion, looking for a job, or making a career pivot, I'll teach you how to navigate it all so you can have the career you want. Welcome to episode 64. I have been noticing a problem out there, and it is that too many of you are looking at your job search or career from the perspective of what's missing. That you're missing skills, or that you're missing out on opportunities, or maybe that your education isn't where it should be. And the reason that this is a problem is because what's going on in your mind is what you experience in your reality. There will always be lack. There will always be never enough or not quite there when all you can think about is what's missing. And it's just crazy how this plays out. I'll give you a very specific example. When I start coaching a client on interviews and we're getting ready to do interview prep, the first question I always ask is, what's working? What's working really well for you in interviews? And the answer almost every single time is actually what's going wrong. It's like I never asked what's going right. The brain is just bypassing that, skipping right over it, and going to what isn't working. This is just crazy town, how our brains are wired to look for what's wrong. But you've got to fix this. And the reason you need to fix it is because it's going to show up. It's going to stop you from taking the actions you need to take, or it'll be a distraction and you will be always taking courses and never actually applying for the job because something's always missing. So what is the solution to this? Number one, I would offer you that once you decide that life is 50-50, I learned this from my coach, Brooke Castillo. Once you just decide that 50% of it is going to be great or good, and 50% of it is going to be not great and not good, you don't get thrown off by either side of it, actually. You're not on a roller coaster ride. Basically, you're saying, oh, okay, this is the 50% that isn't fun. No problem. And because you are acknowledging that that's kind of how things are always going to go, it means that you won't have any surprises. It means you'll automatically be prepared for the unexpected because it just happens. And you'll be able to adapt to it. You won't lean into the negative side, that negative 50%, nor will you be addicted to the positive 50% and think something's gone terribly wrong when you're not living in happiness all the time. You see where I'm going with this? It's being aware that there's always going to be a 50-50 element, and then deciding to be intentional about what you have instead of what you don't have. What I'm saying here is that what you have exists outside of the 50-50. A bad day doesn't take everything away from you, and a great day is just that great day. Like, it doesn't have to determine what you bring to the table in your career and in your roles that you're pursuing in your job search. So how do you get to a place where you're just acknowledging what you have and not allowing the teeter-totter of 50-50 to take you out and get you out of your game plan? Well, first, you need to train your mind. We spend so much time, so much energy investing in a lot of other things, in a lot of areas of life, and hardly any in training your mind. But training your mind is actually one of the most, if not the most important things you can do to navigate life. When it comes to your job search, what I want you to do is review your career history to acknowledge the plus side of things, focusing on your strengths, identifying your transferable skills, identifying your workplace strengths. As you know, this is something I use with all of my clients, is we do a survey of your workplace behavioral strengths, the innate strengths that underpin your success. It's the way you're wired. It's the way your brain just works, what makes you tick. Once you know that, then you can start drawing parallels in relationships to what you have instead of what you don't have. So regularly acknowledging accomplishments. I'm going to put a worksheet in the show notes for you about acknowledging your accomplishments, but identifying these things will help you stay focused on what you have and making that the starting point for everything, the starting point for your resume, the starting point for your job search strategy, the starting point for your interviews. Because I'll tell you, when you're only thinking about what you don't have, that ends up being a lackluster resume, a job search strategy that doesn't involve boldness and direct outreach and leveraging the resources that are available to you. And in interviews, when you go on autopilot and answer a question beginning with what you don't have, not good, my friends. We want you to start with what you have. That's always the starting point. When you do this, the really cool thing about it, when you are intentional about always starting with what you have, the end result from a practical perspective is that you'll have all of your job search tangibles, as I call them, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, even your job search strategy. Those things will be in line. But most importantly, you'll have a message, an overall message about your value during interviews that speaks for itself. Imagine never having to convince anyone of anything again. Wouldn't that be so awesome? Wouldn't it be so great to enter every interview knowing that your value is clearly apparent, that you don't have to convince anybody, you don't have to sell yourself to anyone in a weird, creepy way, right? You know it's a marketing campaign, but that's so different than selling yourself and convincing and going in feeling a sense of lack that has to be overcome in the process of that interview. Instead, you know who you are, you're comfortable in your own skin, and you have the ability to be clear and straightforward and actually detached from the outcome. Such an incredible state to be in when you're entering your job search, when you're deep into interviewing, that you're just detached. This might work, maybe it won't work. 50-50, right? But it's okay because you have so much more beyond that. I have coached hundreds of people, and I am telling you with absolute confidence that I can always find a starting place. Always. I can find the connections between the job you have and the job you want. And if I can do it, so can you. You just have to train your brain to be looking for it. And I'm telling you, we're not making stuff up here either. We are being very authentic. We are finding the starting points and the connections that are full of integrity, because when the focus is on what you have right now, today, and the value that you've accumulated over time, what you're doing is you are unlocking things that have been sitting there in your brain waiting to be put to use. Our minds translate our outer condition. So if you're always looking for what you don't have, then the translation inside your mind is that you're lacking, or maybe you're not worthy, or maybe you're not enough. I'm here to tell you that you are enough and that you are worthy. You get to decide that. I watched a program again the other night. The story was so inspiring. And this beautiful young woman, a singer, who was auditioning despite the fact that she was in the middle of a cancer battle, said she was there because you can't wait for everything to be perfect to decide to be happy. And for you, you can't wait for everything to be perfect to decide to go for what you want, to decide to apply for that job, go for that promotion. Because think about it. If life is 50-50 and you're waiting for it to be perfect, you're not going for it half the time. Then you should be going for it. That's why I want you to start with what you have, to have that exist outside of conditions in the 50-50, to have that exist simply because it's you and it's who you are and it's what you bring to the table. This is going to ignite your job search, and this is going to get you moving faster and further than you can ever imagine. But it starts with deciding that you are enough and that you have everything you need, and it continues with training your brain to live in that space on a consistent basis. Re-look at your resume. Re-look at your LinkedIn profile. Think about the conversations that you're having with other people. Are you starting with what you have, or is what you don't have seeping into those conversations and those documents? Create the list. Everything you have. Look at a job description. Download that job post and highlight every single thing that you have. Don't start with, oops, I don't have that. Start with what you do have. Because I bet you're far more qualified than you're giving yourself credit for. And when you start to see that and believe it, your boldness factor is going to go right up, which means you're going to be much more successful, not only in your job search, but in your career. All right, until next time. If you like listening to this podcast, and you are going to love my program, Job Search Field Guide. This is a unique opportunity. I offer group coaching alongside a 5-step process to help you land a job quickly. So I hope you will join me in Job Search Field Guide. This is going to be revolutionary to your career journey and your job search, and you get lifetime access. So find it at elissashuck-careercoach.com, and I will see you there.